On this episode of Still Loading, Elizabeth Saydah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I am your host, Josh Koval, and today on the show, I have a wonderful guest joining me that I cannot wait to speak to, and I cannot wait for you all to learn about. Joining me today is an actor, an improviser, a voiceover artist, and a comedian. Today on the show, I have Elizabeth Saydah. Liz, how are you doing today?
I am great, Josh. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Other than my daughter having a little bit of a meltdown right before we started recording, other than that, things are going fantastic. So I can't complain.
Good.
Uh,
Yes, yeah. I mean, they keep us honest, keep us on our toes, so you're ready for anything.
I might have to. There might be some heavy editing. We will find out. Well, actually, you won't find out. It'll all sound all flawless. I promise.
I have
In
no
post,
doubt. I have no
but
doubt.
but no, I'm excited to chat with you today, Liz. I've been looking forward to speaking with you. And before we dive into the questions, just so my listeners can get to know you a little bit better, listeners, Liz here is voicing Riley, the lead from the new Oxenfree game, Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. She is also Myra in The Evil Within 2. She is also Piper in Brawl Stars and a number of other games. She also does on-camera film work as well as voiceover work for commercials and a myriad of other things. So I'm so excited to talk to you a bit about your new game that just came out, Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals, as well as it was recently announced you do a voice in a new Stargate game, Stargate Timekeepers. So to kick it off, to dive into it, my first question for you is, when voicing Riley, is there any, how did you prepare for this game specifically? Was there anything different about this game compared to others that you voiced, or was there any specific challenges that you faced in doing this performance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I think one of the I'm gonna say overall arching challenges of video game acting is that, A, you get the script literally right before the session, so
Hmm.
preparation is usually not a ton. You kinda get, framework of, like, who this person is, um, and I sorta had, like, keywords and whatnot, but it was like, she's my age, she's kind of in the same phase of life, which is such a prevalent kind of theme, like, chapters of life, in the
Hmm.
game, and, I sort of went at her as myself and then kind of had to find the emotional journey, like, as we went, because, again, you're getting dialogue that's completely in a vacuum. You don't know necessarily what the other characters are saying to you, and
Yeah.
and you've gotta do each line because this is branching dialogue as well, so it's like 3 different, emotions or intention
Mm.
ones. So, my best short not a long story long, my best, way of describing my prep is just being completely open to what comes at me, because it literally could be different at any moment, but as far as just her voice, I went at it my voice completely, and then if they were gonna wanted to tweak anything, then I'm
Mhm.
completely open to that too. So, yeah.
Do you think that your background, because one of the things I mentioned at the top is that you're an improviser. I saw that you studied at Second City, and you've been doing improv for a number of years now. Has that helped you in this, not just this role, but in voice acting in general? And if so, which ways has improv helped you prepare for roles? Whether, like you said, for this one, immediately in the room when you get the script, or
Oh, totally.
otherwise.
Oh, man, I cannot speak more highly of improv, not even just for actors, like, for anybody. It's just such a
Hmm.
good especially I'm kind of a, n n I'm kind of a shy person in life, so,
I
it's a
can relate
great
to that.
yeah, it's a great icebreaker just in general, but, um, for acting, and voice acting, like, across the board, it helps you just think quickly on your feet, be creative, add your own spice, to any character. It helps you just add human life to a character. Like, the great thing about working with Night School is that they were so open to my little, bits of spice and
Yeah,
seasoning,
yeah.
and allowing just me to be like, like just the little human things that make a character human. And it's not just what's on the page, without going completely off the rails. So I think it helps you just own a character, create a character because, sometimes you can just kind of go off the page a little bit. Um,
Mhm.
and I love improv because it just kind of separates you from the pack. If you can kind of come up with something different than what everybody else is doing, whether you're on camera or behind the mic, it's just invaluable. So I can't recommend it highly enough. And yeah, and it's helped my comedy, my sense of timing. Timing
Mhm.
is so important. And with video games, again, you're getting a lot of things in a vacuum. You kind of have to manufacture your own timing in a way. And so I think just improv training helps with just honing that skill and
Mhm.
knowing how to, really capture good timing. So those are some of the highlights, I guess, among others.
Specifically within improv, is there anything that is there any improvisers that you enjoy working with a lot? Like because I feel like I'm actually a fan of improv myself. Not only obviously the more commonly known stuff, whose line is it anyway, but also stuff like I'm a huge fan of Comedy Bang Bang and the improvisers from that podcast and stuff like that. So I'm always curious, like people who do improv, who do you like to work with, and what type of improv do you like to do?
Yeah, well, specifically, so I'm in a weekly, like, workshop kinda workout thing,
Hmm.
with a group of, like, older, seasoned, like, veteran improvisers. These guys and gals have been around for, 40 years, literally, like, some of them are in their 70s, and they are so funny and so sharp, and I love working with that kind of older, seasoned perspective because I feel like I okay, I don't wanna bash on the current SNL, but I will because I think it's awful. I'm just horrified. I think it's abysmally bad, and it's, getting away from this sort of, like, group ensemble energy that
Yeah,
makes improv succeed. You cannot succeed in improv by yourself, and I feel like they've hired a bunch of, like, singular characters who I don't find funny, but that alone,
I
um
getcha.
yeah, so anyway, um it's that kind of old school mindset of like, we are a group and we need to finish each other's sentences. And I find older people way funnier than younger people. Maybe that's just me too. Um, but I love working with them and yeah, it just keeps me, it just makes my mind work differently, because we're just of a different generation and we have different senses of humor, but also I find I have similar senses of humor in some ways, so I find that really fun and challenging, and, monthly, I perform with my group, mostly organic,
Mhm.
in Los Angeles, and we perform with the longest running, I should say, improv group, Off the
Oh,
Wall.
okay.
Yeah, they've been together for 40 years. There have been different iterations, like, but some of the original members are still there. Robin Williams was in it at one point, John
Mhm.
Ritter, Gary Shandling, like, it's really seen a lot of amazing
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, so, they're just an inspiration and they just rock it out. So, um, I like I like games-based improv more than, like, long form, just because long form, you kinda get locked into a prompt or whatever, and
Yeah,
games,
okay.
I think I'm a little too maybe ADD for it. So I like changing it up, but I like game-based, improv, personally. That's just more fun for me.
I probably if I was doing improv, I'd probably be with you on that. I feel like because it allows a little bit more variety to it than
Yeah.
like I don't
Yeah,
know. I like being able to. It almost feels like you can exercise different muscles then, as opposed to
totally.
just like one for a specific
Yeah,
long form scene or play or what have you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, and if you get stuck, whatever, the scene's gonna be over in 30 seconds, whatever. Long form, which is part of the challenge and what really sets people apart, but I think there's something just yeah, you can play with more characters, there's more to kinda do, for me. I don't know, that's just my feeling.
moving back to Oxenfree and Stargate Timekeepers, I was wondering because they're very different style games in terms of the genre. Oxenfree is kind
Totally.
of a more narrative based, lots of dialogue and there's lots of
Yeah.
dialogue trees and stuff like that. Sorry. And Stargate Timekeepers is more of a real time tactics game. So
Mhm.
is there any difference for yourself when either you're preparing for, well, like you said, it's hard to prepare for the roles, but when you're performing the roles, is there any difference in how you have to perform them, or is there any difference in terms of the type of work that the game developers ask you to do when you're doing the VO work for it?
Sure. I think the biggest difference is just the fact that, like, with a tactical game like Stargate, or well, not Evil, I won't say Evil Within, but with Stargate, like, you're doing efforts, you're doing fighting, it's like, screaming, like, it's a lot more vocally stressful, it just is, which
Mm,
isn't bad necessarily, it's just it can be wearing, um, and, uh, and I don't wanna say I just got so spoiled with Oxenfree too because there's so much just beautiful nuance to the writing
yeah.
and emotional life that they just breathed into, that it is chock full of just good stuff, and so it's kinda hard to, it really is apples and oranges, but yeah, I'm not gonna have as many tender emotional moments in Stargate than,
What are you talking about?
yeah, I mean, I tried. I
you could
you
you could really
play it
put
and find out.
some sadness into those grunts.
Yeah, exactly. I don't wanna say it's more one note. I don't wanna say that, but, yeah, I just feel like, tactical games they're made for a specific reason,
Mhm.
and sometimes, the voice acting is not prioritized maybe as much as, like, a story-based game like
Yeah.
Oxenfree, and so Oxenfree is just, yeah, it's just a joy to get to work on that. It's great. They did such
In
a good
turn
job.
within Oxenfree as Riley, do you find how much of yourself ended up being part of the character? Is Riley very similar to you as you as a person, or did you draw on more influences to kind of craft the character of Riley?
She's not similar to me as far as how she lives her life. A lot of the trauma that she's been through in life. I also just feel like she's a lot kind of more brave and willful maybe than I am. I like to think I'm that way, but in a way I kind of feel like there are parts of her where I'm like, she's like my alter ego, she's what I would aspire to be. She's just like a straight shooter. Um she can kinda do anything, but she also has a lot of vulnerability, a lot of flaws, which I do too, and we also, I feel like the main, like, character trait I think that maybe we share the most, that comes through the most, is that we kind of use humor as a defense mechanism.
Hmm.
So that, like, I totally just locked in on, and I
Yeah,
really, yeah, really focused on that a lot. Um, but, yeah, I mean, she's pregnant, she's, been in the military, these are all things I have not been or done. Um so just life experience completely different.
yeah.
I've never lived on an island. Yeah, uh, but as far as just finding her voice itself, the voice is, it's just part of it, but, like, finding, the emotional life, like any acting exercise, it's just finding what's similar in my life that I can, ch you know, translate to what
To
she's going through.
channel into
Yeah.
to the role.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
always curious about that because some actors are very much like, well, I'm just acting. I'm not drawing from personal experience. I'm just emoting this. So I'm always curious if depending on how you approach the role, if you're just kind of like, well, I'm acting, or is it more, or was it more drawing from personal experience? Like you said, you drew from some personal emotions, like similar emotions, in order to bring out the aspects of Riley that aren't part of you, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, yes, I think
If that
in
made any
order
sense.
No, no, I got you. I think I know what you're saying. Yeah, it's important in order to find, like, a truthful, authentic, uh, performance, for me, and maybe that doesn't make me as good of an actor as other people, but I can't just, I need to, like, draw on something, it needs to come from somewhere to be, I don't know, like, real at all, so, even if it's not the same
Yeah.
experience, it's really just trying to find those parallels, without, in a healthy way, that's not, like,
Yes. Yeah.
going
You
down
don't you
the
don't wanna emotionally cripple yourself for the rest of the
exactly.
day.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, that's always, I think, the challenge and the exercise, and so that's what I do. Yeah, to find that sort of truthful voice.
In acting in general, one of the things, so you just kind of, you talking about how you try to find the truthful voice for each character that you perform, and one of the things I enjoyed reading, like doing research in preparation for this episode, was like on your voiceover website you talk about how much you are committed to each role that you are booked for, and
Yeah,
I could actually really feel that even just in the writing of your site, like as you're trying to explain like your process. And one of the
yeah.
things that you mentioned about your process on your site, which I thought was really interesting, was that whether it's an hour-long training module or a 30-second commercial spot, at the end of the day, we're still telling a story. So
Mhm.
what I wanted to ask kind of in relation to that is, for some of the work that you book, whether it's a commercial spot, whether it's a game, which might be more narratively heavy, but specifically more for things along the lines like a commercial spot or an hour long training session, how do you as an actor find the story in something that maybe on its surface doesn't really appear to have one, whether, like a 30-second commercial spot or something? Like, how do you go about uh, trying to figure that out?
Yeah, I think, like with any job, I really do approach it the same. And for me, telling a story is using my authentic voice to communicate what the script says. And
Hmm.
however, so for me, usually that's my conversational, natural, I'm talking to you, I'm actually talking to you, a person rather than just,
Hmm.
okay, let me present this to a sort of this, nebulous, um, whatever cloud. Um, I, uh, I I really just find that every script has an arc, it has a point, whether it's well written or not, and I just do everything I can to tell to read it as naturally and just
Yeah.
conversationally and humanly as possible. It sounds really obvious. Amazingly, it's hard. Like, some of the tricks I'll do is I'll start talking before the script even starts. Like, I'll just start
Mm.
talking and, like, saying stuff just to, like, get into the flow, because every script has its own flow, its own rhythm, its own energy,
Yeah.
regardless of the content. So, you just wanna, like, tap into that and make it just sound as easy as possible. And that goes for character work too, It's like, what is who's this character? What does she want? What are we doing here? Um, so I really, even if that's me being an instructor in a training video, like, "Hey, welcome to, this hospital's safety course. Like, we're here to save your life." So, I think just knowing exactly what it is the intention is, off the bat just helps you tell it like a story, because 'cause you're getting from point A to point B. And, yeah, and then the tricks of the trade of just making it sound like a human being. Um,
Yeah, I gotcha.
yeah, so
Uh,
that was
I, I've
long-winded.
I've I've kind of drilled you a little bit on like nitty gritty acting stuff, and so I
No.
want to kind of go into a little bit more on a personal level. Like, we've already talked a bit about Oxenfree,
Yeah.
and we've talked a bit about obviously Stargate timekeepers. So people go check those out. Of course, we'll shout it out again at the end of the
Do
episode.
it.
But on a personal level, I kind of want my listeners to get to know more about your journey as an actor so far, and like what you like, where you started, and kind of where you've been going, and like first off, I want to know if IMDb is actually freaky correct or not, because it's a good sometimes it's a accurate repository of information, sometimes not.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
so it says here you were born in Nashville but grew up in Jersey.
That's right. Yes,
That is
yes.
right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, both my parents are from New Jersey. They are New Jersey people through and through, but my dad just had a job, in Nashville for, like, 4 or 5 years, and so I was born there. I've never been back either, which amazingly, like, how have I never been back? So, it's on my bucket list, but yeah, my parents moved back to Jersey when I was, like, 1, so I never got the drawl. I never, never set in. My southern roots never got to take. So,
I mean,
um, yeah.
I'm kind of glad for that. Based off the character that I've talked to you off mic about it, and I really correct me if I'm wrong, but the character that I referenced to you before for your YouTube show, the conspiracy show, conspiracy cover ups,
Yeah.
Carmelo Carmichael Angelo. I feel
Yep.
like that's a very Jersey influenced character. Am I
You
correct
think?
with that?
Yeah, your instincts are spot on, Josh. Yes, that was, yeah, she was just an amalgamation of so many people, both imaginary and real, and I just loved playing her so much. Like, I still bring her back in improv sometimes, in different forms. I can't copy her exactly, but,
Was
um,
that show improv or was that scripted?
it was improved. Yes.
That's amazing.
All of my guests were improvisers, or I should say guests, 'cause, like, it was a talk show,
Guest
but a all
stars,
the other
talks.
actors, yeah, were
Yeah.
were, um, were improvisers, and we basically just gave everybody a kind of a rough outline of, like, this is kinda where the conversation's gonna go, but we wanted everybody to kinda make their characters their own and have fun with it. Like, "I trust you. Please have fun with this." Like, dig in. This is, like, who the character is, but make it your own. Go for it. So, yeah, we just really wanted to dig into making fun of conspiracy culture and, using some classic I say classic ones, more well-known ones that aren't totally loony. But yeah, I love Carmela she's
I
fucking
I
awesome.
love the prep for the character. Well, the thing that got me, believe it or not, the first thing that made me laugh, besides obviously like the wig that you wear for it, is the ashtray on the
Yeah,
table. I know
thank
that's
you.
that is filled with cigarette butts, like not just like 4 or 5, like 60 stacked on top of each other straight up, like they're glued together. I
Yeah,
don't know why. And then of course taxidermy cat on the side on the I was like, "Is
Roz.
that
Yeah, 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 Roz.
Oh my god, I don't know why I even noticed the cigarettes, but it killed me. I'm like, "That's a Jersey." Yep, just
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my god, that made me and then your first guest, I could not remember the actress's name or the, character she played, but when she started naming all the cats,
Oh my
and they were all just the most absurd, like, Onion something was one,
Charlie,
and
little Charlie Onions.
Little
Yeah.
Charlie Onions. Sorry.
I still remember these, like, so well.
It
I like
it
yeah,
slayed me. I was laughing so hard.
yeah.
I listeners, I said it off mic to her as well. I'm going to be watching the rest of these because I was obsessed with I just love the character so much.
Oh, thank you.
Uh, is improv stuff like that stuff you would want to do more of, whether it's for YouTube or whether it's for like some, I don't know, like the kind of the video produced improv, or whether it's on a podcast, even just something that's not stage or theater? Nothing against stage or theater, but just
Oh, yeah.
out of curiosity for myself, is that something you would do more of if you had the time to?
Oh, definitely, yeah. First and foremost, because I hate memorizing stuff. Hate it so much. Like, voiceover has ruined me in that regard. Like, the first big role I ever got was Helena in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Do you have any idea how much text Helena says? She is the biggest role in that
Oh
whole
my
play.
god.
And I just, like, memorized it, boom, boom, but, like, nothing. Now I'm like, How? How?" Now I'm like, I have an audition and it's got 5 lines, and I'm like, "Okay,
That's a
okay,
lot of
let's do
lines.
this." Yeah, like, fuck. So to answer your question, yes. So it's partially out of laziness, but partially just because, yeah, I don't know, I have more fun with it, and I just tend to always do it anyway, even you know, if I'm doing a voiceover, audition or whatever, it's like, it's not gonna hurt, I'll throw it in, and if they say, "Great, let's stick to the script," it's like, "Yeah, at least I tried it." Um,
Mhm.
but, yeah, as far as on-camera stuff, it's very hard to shoot, improvised stuff. Luckily, we had 3
Yeah.
cameras, we were able to just cover everything because it's if you're and we were doing it on we were just funding it ourselves and,
Yeah,
you know,
it's your own it's an indie
ex
production.
totally, which is I'm so grateful for all of the indie experience I have, and everybody should go through it if they're in the film and TV industry, but it's hard, and it's very time consuming, and, yeah, yeah, but I loved every second, and yes, if somebody could just write a check, every week or month or whatever, I would totally just make whatever, but yeah, I think and I also have really high standards for myself and
Mhm.
for I mean, for things that I watch. Like I said, I like the current SNL, even though that's not improv at all because they're reading off of cue cards the entire time, and I hate
Are
it.
they actually really?
Oh, it's like, "Why am I here?" Like, anyway, I'm gonna stop bashing on that. There goes my chances of ever being on, but,
Oh, Lorne.
yeah, Lorne. Um, I, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's
I
actually, if I actually have a follow-up
yeah,
question kind of in the same veins as
yeah,
that,
yeah,
just to kinda shift gears slightly.
yeah,
In improv, do you actually on a personal level, because I feel like it depends on the performer,
yeah.
do you find it's easier to do comedy via improv or scripted? For me personally, like, I'm not saying I ever could be a performer, but I always like, if someone asks me to read a funny line, it's a lot harder than me just being able to come up with something off the top of my head, you know? So I
Oh.
always feel like personally, I would feel like that'd be easier, but I'm always curious on an individual basis. Like, do you find it easier to do comedy on improv or via script?
Oh, definitely improv is harder for me. Because I approach improv like real life. So, you
Mm,
know how even with character and this is again kind of getting into my own acting philosophy, but any character, any scene, it's gotta be based in reality. And if it's crazy, that's because, the circumstances are crazy. It's not
yeah.
because you are crazy, you know? And
Mm.
so having, uh, creating a character, and the sort of pressure of doing that, it's fun for me. It's also terrifying and why I will always be terrified of improv and why I will continue doing it therefore. Um,
It's the good kinda scary.
it
It
is, yeah.
makes it kinda keeps you on the edge.
Totally, yeah. I need that to keep thriving just as a yeah, it'll keep me alive.
Mhm.
Um So when somebody hands me a script, it's like, "Oh, it's here." Like, the pressure's off and all that just training and practice and experience of so many years, it just kinda I'm not saying I have it figured out on the first
No, no,
read, like,
no.
I'm not gonna, say, "Oh, I'm the best." But I just find there's a lot more, freedom. Ironically, even though, like, with improv, anything goes, you can do whatever you want, and that's what's so cool about it, but in my own Liz Saydah craziness, I'm like, "Well, what's the right choice?"
You're
When
paralyzed by choice as opposed to
totally.
having the choice made for you.
Exactly, and so maybe that's why I'm a natural born actor 'cause it's like, "Here, take this, read it," it's handed to you, and then I can kind of make it my own. When you have to both build the foundation and the house, it's a lot more daunting versus the foundation's
Mm.
built, now we could just get to, like, decorate and, add the character stuff, writing for me is and that's why I love doing Carmela and why it was, kind of a fun challenge, and I liked the collaborative part, but, I'm very insecure about my writing and creating, and again, why I think it's important to keep doing it, but that was my original point I was gonna make. I have
Mm.
high standards for myself, and so I would never wanna just create a bunch of crap and put it out there. I don't think I don't like, I could never be, like I don't know if I could ever be like a TikToker and have to just crank out stuff all the time. I don't know if I could do it.
I feel you on that. I
Yeah,
couldn't do it.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
always a pressure even amongst podcasters to like put your stuff out
yeah,
there on TikTok, to put your
yeah,
stuff out there on Instagram Reels or Facebook, whatever the fucks, I
yeah.
or YouTube. That's the word. Or whatever. All the social media stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like
Mhm.
I have a hard time enough as it is figuring out what to post daily on Instagram to keep myself active on in the algorithm.
Yeah.
But like
Oh my god.
that's just posting a picture, let
Mhm.
alone trying to do something creative on a daily basis. I mean, hell, even with this show, it's a different version of creativity because it's like the art. I guess the creativity of conversation, I guess, is more what podcasting is. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
even for this, like I'm recording this episode almost a month in advance because I have to like plan stuff out. And I
Totally.
if I were doing everything the week of, I this show wouldn't survive. In
Oh my
fact,
god.
that's actually how I started. I was not weekly when I first started this forever ago because I couldn't think
Mhm.
a week at a time like that.
Yeah.
So to bring it back to what you're saying, I could totally understand what you're saying about how like it, you have a certain ideal in your head, and if the turnaround time does not meet up with the time it's going to take for you to hit that ideal,
Yeah.
hit that standard, it's just it's anxiety inducing. It's awful.
Totally, yeah. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. Like, I wish I could just be like, "Fuck it, whatever, let's just put it out." And that is a and I don't know, I think that's the the artist's struggle. I don't know, you wanna go like, what you have to just keep creating and keep producing no matter what, and, fuck your standards sometimes, but I still have them, and I still kinda wanna I just wanna be good. That's all I just wanna be good, and I don't wanna put bad stuff out there, really at the end of the day. So, yeah, your original question was, do you wanna do more rough stuff? Yeah,
I
yeah,
like these tangents. We can
yes,
go off on them
okay,
as much as
cool.
we want.
Great, 'cause I am a q the queen of tangents. Yeah, yeah, and there are just so many hours in the day, and, I think, we struggle a lot with where do you put your energy and allocating it, responsibly also, but then doing stuff that fills your cup, all that good stuff. So, the answer is I have no answers. I don't know.
No, I like kind of this more philosophical take. I like how I started this. I'm like, I'm going to ask you more about yourself in terms of your personal journey. Now we're just going into like content creation philosophies. I have
Totally,
no
yeah,
issue with that.
yeah,
I love it. Uh,
it's so
but speaking of yourself, like I mentioned before, you studied at Second City in Chicago.
Mhm.
What was that like? Because that's like considered one of the more, I don't know if legendary is the right term, but it's a very iconic like improv troupe. And listeners, I'm sorry I'm focused so much on improv, but this is like one of my personal favorite things. I'm
Oh,
obsessed with it because I can't do it, and I love listening to improv comedians. So when I get to have one on the show, I'm going to ask a lot of questions about it. But yeah, so what was it like at Second City? Was it was it what you expected, or was it what kind of stuff did you learn from there?
um, to be honest with you, I enjoyed it. I did it when I was, like, 21. So
Mhm.
I'd actually just graduated college early because I loved it that much. And, so I went but I enrolled, in specifically I forget what it was called now. It was because with a lot of these schools, Groundlings and Second City and they have, like, tiered classes, basically, and
Yeah.
I specifically didn't wanna do that, so I enrolled in the improv for I think it was, like, improv for actors, specifically, it was like that it was like a
Okay,
different
I
thing.
see.
Yeah, which I enjoyed, so again, this was like, because 'cause I'm 39, so this was, like, 18 years ago, and I felt um like I mean, I don't think I let the sort of, like, prestige of the institute to institution institute, well, they're crazy people there too, kind of overwhelm me. I think I was, like, the right amount of naive, where I just kinda, like, went in and was like, "Oh, let me just see what this is about," because I knew I had improvised before, but never in any kind of, structured setting. So I yeah, I wish I could remember the people this is not a good anecdote at all because I just don't I'm, like, trying to
No,
remember
but
what it was like.
actually, what you're saying here leads me to a different question. If it,
Yeah,
you mentioned how it was almost being naive about the quote unquote like prestige of
yeah,
Second City. Do you ever feel
yeah,
like being naive about something can actually be a benefit, like in terms of like not psyching yourself? I'm sure naivety a lot of times is not considered a good thing, but I sometimes
yeah,
I've heard it from you just there, like you
yeah.
didn't read too far into it. Kevin Smith also talks about how he got into movies because Richard Linklater did Slacker, and he filmed that in Austin, Texas. And Kevin didn't realize that Austin was like a huge film town at the time, and it was like some big city
Yeah,
and this and that. He's just like, oh, this is just some guy from like Bumblefuck, Texas. Like why would, like, if he can make a movie, I can make a movie. So his
yeah,
naivety actually assisted him in
totally.
making Clerks and doing everything that he
Oh
ended
my
up
god.
doing.
Yeah,
And likewise for you with Second City, you're just like, oh, I want to learn improv. This is, let me look this up and let me look this up online and see what I can find, type of thing. So, like, do you feel
absolutely.
like that has, whether it's in Second City or otherwise, has that ever helped you in your career, like being blissfully unaware of something? And
100%, like 1,000,000%. I can't even talking about anxiety and I have that. I overly calculate. I try to overthink everything. I'm a worrier. I plan everything. Like, God, it drives me insane. And all the best things that have happened to me in life where I've actually moved forward have been when I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to go do it. Like moving to LA. I came out to LA, small tangent, but I'll get back to Second City.
no,
I
no. Well, we can get off a Second City if you want. It's fine.
no,
This is interesting.
no, I mean, uh, I lived in Chicago, because I went to college there. And then I was like, I should check out LA. And I had a friend who lived out here and I came out for the summer, and he lived, like, in Venice, and it was, like, by the beach, and he was a
Yeah.
good old friend from high school, so it was, like, familiarity, safety, bubble, whatever, and, I, like, came here, and I took a class because I had to have a purpose, I wasn't just gonna, like, be a beach bum, um,
Hmm.
and I, like, decided after 3 weeks, I'm like, "I'm moving here, like, that's it," and I called my parents because I do care about what they think, I got their blessing. I can't believe it because it's like, "What?" Like, it was just I mean, crazy, but not crazy. At the same time,
Yeah.
it felt so right, you know? And that uncalculated decision, I've never looked back, and it really was the difference for me and making me I wouldn't be here now, doing what I'm doing if I hadn't done that. I like to think, I would have carved out a nice little career in Chicago, and it's still my favorite city, but man, that was the biggest "fuck it" I've ever
Yeah.
done and said, "Let's do this." And I think with Second City, I always, you know just being blissfully unaware, not I psych myself out. It was always my problem as an athlete, like, growing up. I would psych myself out because there's just all these what if scenarios, and if I
Yep.
win this and so then you're 10 steps ahead of yourself and you've lost the
Hmm.
game or what I was a tennis player. And you don't have a team to back you up. Um,
Hey, that was also on IMDb. Looks like that was correct too.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and, so I think, for me personally, the blissful, unaware, naivete, whether intentional or not, has always benefited me, completely, when I just let my foot off the gas and say, "I'm gonna just try this. I'm just gonna do this." It's always I've never regretted it. I've never regretted it, so, yeah, that's it.
I can relate to that very much. As told you off mic, I also deal with anxiety.
Yep.
It is not fun.
Oh,
The what ifs. It's never ending. It's incessant.
mhm.
It's frustrating because you just wish you could turn your brain off sometimes and you can't.
Yep, yep,
So it's not fun. So I totally feel you on that.
yeah.
I want to bring it back a bit to video games because, of course, A, I'm a gaming podcast. B, you're the your PR company that, like, was nice enough to reach out to me. I would assume they would like me to talk about, like, promote the stuff that you're working on and talk about some games and whatnot. So I had a question. After I say all that, I'm not even asking a question about Oxenfree
Oh, yeah.
or Stargate. I want to ask about Wanderer, the VR game that you
Oh, yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I was wondering, did you experience? Was there anything different about performing for that? Since it was in VR, was it different from other games because it was VR, or was it kind of just run of the? Not, I shouldn't say run of the mill, but like, was it kind of more similar than you were expecting it to be?
It was more traditional than I was expecting it to be. I, like, I didn't have to there was no mocap or, like, anything. I didn't have to, I think I'm trying to remember, because I think I did the 2019. Now I'm
Well,
trying to
the
remember.
game came out in 2022, which obviously you did not do that in 2022. There's a long,
Right.
there's a long
Yeah, that's right.
development timeline, but
Yes, I do remember doing a session though during COVID, so it must have been yeah, I must have started it in 2020. Anyway, um, I it really was a pretty traditional, session, again, got on the line with the developers down in New Zealand, great guys, um, and I was playing Amelia Earhart, so I felt a little like, "Okay, I've gotta."
was the anxiety in for that one because of the role?
You know, no, not I mean, no, but eh, I feel like the anxiety I feel for about voice acting has lessened a ton just because at this point I've done a lot
Mm,
and I'm like, "Okay, I've got this. Even if I'm wrong out of the gate, it's okay. We'll just pivot." And, now I just need to translate that to the rest of my life. Um yeah, but as far as just the sort of brass tacks of the recording process, it was very, chill, very calm. I didn't just because it was in VR, that's all tech stuff that had nothing to do with me. So, so I didn't get to play with,
I
syncing up to
getcha.
anything. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
getcha.
yeah.
And terms of your voice work, whether it's for games or otherwise, I know Oxenfree 2 just came out, so this may not quite apply just because it is so recent. But what work do you get most noticed for? Like, is it Brawl Stars, or is it The Evil Within 2, or is it some like in front of camera work, or is it what are some roles you get most noticed for?
I would say, I mean, the most attention, or just people, following me or checking in was definitely Brawl Stars, and I was like, "What is this game?" I had no idea, and then I tried to play it, and I'm like, "What?" Obviously, you wanna talk about the difference between Stargate and Oxenfree 2, and then Brawl Stars is it's a whole different it's an app game, I think I say, like, 20 different things. That's it, and
And
it
people recognize you for that. That's not
Yes,
trying to sound
I
insulting. I just it's
I
like
know.
the
Kiss
it seems
Margaret.
like smaller amount of lines.
Yeah, yeah, which I guess, I guess, quality over quantity, but yeah, it's a very silly game, thank you, Brawl Stars, um,
Hmm.
but yeah, they just have a huge following in, like, Russia and, like, man, just I've yeah, it's from really far-reaching places, it's an international phenomenon, so probably that, but, yeah, game-wise, I would say probably that, and then now Oxenfree 2, and then, there's some, like, Evil Within residual stuff. Granted,
Yeah.
that game came out, a bit ago. But yeah, and then I do a lot of, like, really small games too that just, come out and people aren't gonna they're probably not gonna
Well,
know, but I don't really care. I'm
there's
like, I
one
love
that.
yeah, yeah, sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. No, finish what you're saying. I cut you off.
I mean, I love to work like I was saying, I approach every job the same, even if it's a small in-app game, like, I will voice the crap out of that, like, I have so much fun with it, so, it really doesn't matter if it's a huge game or a little game, I'm gonna have fun, so, whether people play it or know me from it or not is totally just icing on the cake.
The thing that stuck out to me, you were talking about small little games. There was a game called Broken Lines that you did the voice of Rosie for that I
Yeah.
saw.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
I've never even played it before, but I hadn't heard of it, but I looked it up. It's got really good, surprisingly good ratings for something I never heard of before.
Yeah.
And it's a narrative driven tactical RPG, which I was very pleasant. Like I wasn't expecting, because the artwork on IMDb looks like a mobile game, which, no offense to mobile game players, but those are
Yeah,
usually, generally, they're not narrative heavy. Not all. Some
right.
of them are. Some of them are. I'm actually covering a game for a friend's show that was very narrative driven. That was a mobile game, but generally you don't see that. So when I saw
Yeah.
the art, I'm like, oh, I wonder what game this is. I was curious. Broken Lines. I see, like, it's got an interesting cartoony look, and it's a narrative driven game about the darkest hours of World War II. So I was very surprised by to see that. I actually kind of want to try it out and check it out. Listeners, it's 80% off on Steam right now. So
Oh
there
my
you
god.
go.
Yeah, so Guilty, I usually don't play the games that I'm in. I have played, most of Oxenfree 2, and I've played Brawl Stars, but I don't know, part of it, and that's just that thing, like, "Do you watch yourself on film?" It's like, I'd really rather not. I'm just gonna let it be, and
No,
it's fine.
I totally
Um,
understand that.
I remember, yeah, I remember doing Broken Lines. I remember I was on vacation in Australia, believe it or not. Um, my husband's an orchestra conductor and was doing shows down in Australia, and,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, so I just I tagged along, and,
Well, I mean, why not? You
yes,
gotta go
it
to
was
you
one of
gotta go
the
to Australia.
I was like, if I'm ever gonna go. Um, and I remember being like, I make pillow forts if I have to travel and record, and I remember, I think that's when I did Rosie, from Broken Lines. I'm, like, 99% sure that's when I did that. So
That's so
she was,
cool.
yeah, she was born in a pillow fort in a hotel in Australia.
That sounds like a band name. Born in the
Yeah,
Pillow Fort.
born in a pillow fort, yeah.
That is like my go-to old quote. I don't know if it's an old man joke, but people have told me before that's an old man style joke. But god damn it, I'm sticking to it. That was my high school band's name. That's my go-to. It's my go-to joke.
I love it.
Um, uh, and speaking of mentioning that you haven't played many of your own games, I saw on your YouTube channel you started a short-lived, but you started a series called Liz Plays Games, because
Yeah.
you say famously you don't really play all that many games. I enjoyed your editing on your announcement too, where you had your cat next to you. Your
Yeah.
cat's name was Penny, who you lovingly call Anubis, but you're not sure why. Or, you know, that once again, just those small lines are sticking out to me, and that made me chuckle. Uh, I haven't been able to watch any of many of those. I watched the trailer, but I didn't get to watch any of the videos. But from what I could see, I saw you tried out Doom, and I guess
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's, and
Mhm.
maybe Star Fox. There we go.
Yes.
Um, have you played more since this series? That was a couple of years ago, and obviously life has gone on. But do you continue to play games, or is it still kind of something where you dabble in it, you enjoy it here and there, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it really is more of a dabbler thing. I would like to continue the series. I think, it was just, yeah, we ended up moving, it was like life, like you said, life happened, and, but
Hmm.
yeah, I had fun doing it. I just, and I don't have any pride in it, and, like, I'm bad, and so, a video
Nothing wrong with that.
game
That's what's fun.
actor being terrible, yeah, let's just, yeah, capitalize on that irony, I guess. Um, yeah, I think just because I spend my entire day in front of a screen, yeah, I guess my bandwidth is kind of yeah, like, I'll play.
You're kind of like almost mentally fried from screen time.
Kinda, yeah, I like that's just how I'm built, like, many
Hmm.
people are stronger than I. And so, yeah, so the first thing I usually wanna do is just, like, get away from screens. I totally get it as, like, just a stress reliever, like, totally makes
Hmm.
sense. It's just not my first choice, but I will totally dabble if other people are playing, like, I'll get in there. Every Christmas, we play GoldenEye, like, old school pixelated GoldenEye and, like, Mario Kart, like, I love all that crap, and yeah,
N64, man. That was my first console. That's one of my personal favorites.
yeah,
Um,
it's just fun. It's just fun. So but yeah, I'm not as adventurous with the new stuff as I probably should be.
it's fine. I feel like there's an unnecessary pressure on on voice actors to play games, when it's like, if it's not your, just because you enjoy acting doesn't mean you're going to necessarily enjoy the medium you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not trying to put words in her mouth here, listeners. If she has said she likes games, she doesn't have time, so don't be angry.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
no. Please don't. Please don't. No, no, I respect it and and it's like and I'm terrible at it. So I'm owning that.
okay. I actually don't have too many more questions for you. So there we go. We're actually keeping to about an hour, just like we asked for.
Heyo.
Um, So I only have a few more questions for you for this episode. It's I end kind of my interviews. I haven't been able to end the interviews the way I've wanted to for a while now. So I'm excited to do that with you again.
Heyo.
Uh, two questions to wrap up the show. One is a question that I kind of steal from Alan Alda. Alan Alda has a wonderful podcast called Clear and Vivid. Listeners, go check it out.
Oh,
And the other one is a question from my wife, who is famously not into games, not into any of the geeky stuff I'm into, anime, video games, and movie and manga and all that good stuff.
yeah.
So I always ask her for a question as well for my guest, who she knows nothing about their work, which I think is kind of interesting.
Oh,
It
yeah.
makes the
I
questions a little bit
love
fun.
that. I love that.
Uh,
Yeah.
so the question from Alan Alda's podcast, his whole podcast is about communication, how the science of communication and how we communicate to each other. And so he always ends his show with 7 quick questions that invite 7 quick answers, or that they want them to answer quickly.
Yeah.
We don't have to answer this quickly, and nor am I going to. Not only that, I'm not going to ask you all 7 questions. I only pick one,
Oh,
and it's my favorite one. So that question is, what do you wish you really understood?
I wish I understood trying to make it as personal as possible and not just generic. It's like I
No, you
yeah,
can answer it literally
yeah.
any way you
Okay, I'm not
like.
gonna overthink it. I just wish I understood how to be content. Like, not happy necessarily, because I don't think that's a real like, I don't know, I don't know if that's a real thing. But, like, I just wish I understood how to be content no matter what. Like, I have moments of it, but, like,
Yeah.
I just, um yeah, and that might I don't yeah, I don't want it to seem like I'm
No,
being
it
generic.
I but I can understand. No, that's not a generic answer. Did you uh I can understand what you're saying, where it feels like it's content and happiness are a different thing. Yes, content,
Mhm.
like you can be happy and not feel content. Generally, when you are content, you are happy, generally,
Right,
but
right.
you can still feel happy without being like, I could have eaten half of an ice cream
Mhm.
and be really happy, but I'm not content because I didn't get that other half of the ice cream.
Yep,
And
yep,
I can kind of see what you're saying. Like, wanting to feel content isn't necessarily greedy. It can come across that way to some people. I feel like, oh,
right.
you're just still not content. No, no, no. It just, everyone. I don't know. That's a very, you were worried if that was a very like canned type of answer. That is like, that's a deep answer. I haven't heard anyone answer it that way before.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
when, like, you just want to know how to, you wish you understood how to feel content. Like, that's tough.
Yeah, and I mean and I do mean that in every circumstance. Like, when things are bad, how do you feel? And maybe is it like is a sense of peace? Is that more like
That might be
maybe
like a
a
sense of
little bit
calm or
yes.
something.
Yes. How do I just find I don't I wish I understood where my calm center was. Yeah. Um but yeah, I think it's tied to contentedness and just a sense of peace because everything is crazy all the time. It's yeah, it's
Yeah.
everything everywhere all at once, all the
Mhm.
time. And so it's never gonna subside. So like I wish I understood that part. And I practice yoga and I do all these things and I go to therapy and so I'm a work in progress, but that's the mountain that I'm that's the mountain that I
I
continue
getcha, I getcha.
to go up.
That's a good answer. So, what I like about that question, and I say this every episode I ask it, so listeners may have probably have heard this a bunch of times, but I don't care. I find it interesting.
Yeah,
Is that it's so open ended, because some
totally.
people, like,
Yeah.
the first thing I thought of was, I wish I understood music theory. I just wish I understood,
Oh,
like I just
interesting.
wish I understood how music theory works. I find it interesting. I wish I understood language, like
Mhm.
how to speak another language.
Yeah.
And then other people, and it's the same thing on Alan Alda's podcast, where some people answer it like the way I did, kind of a very straightforward, like, I
Mhm.
wish I had this type of thing. I wish I understood this. And you took a very philosophical twist to it, where it's like, I wish I understood kind of how to be content, how to find your calm, as you put it. I think that's a good way. I think that's a good way to describe it. How to find your calm,
Yeah.
and
It's just
I like that.
yeah,
That's
I
getting
well,
me thinking. That's why I asked the question. Like, that's getting me thinking.
it's on my mind, like, daily at some point. At some point daily, it's on my mind, so it's like, I guess that makes sense. I guess on a straightforward answer, I wish I understood dialects. Just that's my, like, I am
On a
fascinated,
less serious answer,
on a
you wish
yeah,
you understood dialects.
that's my straight yeah, so but, oh, man, I'm just, like, in awe of people who can just know that, like, they just understand how the tongue and the mouth and everything it's just fascinating. Anyway, okay.
I can't do accents. Period. That I'm kind. I know it's a sister of dialects, but yeah, it's like I can't do
Yeah,
that at all. Like my brother, he's an actor. He can do some dialects and some accents and stuff like that.
yeah,
But if you ask me to do like an English accent or an Australian accent, oh god, it's awful.
yeah,
It is like, oh, it is borderline like problematic because
yeah.
it's so it's like offensively
Just about
stereotypical.
yeah, like, just yeah. I'm gonna not
It's not good. So I'm with you on that as well. I wish I understood dialects. Know who's a really, I don't know if he's actually really good at it, but it fools me, a dumb American. Andy Daly, the improviser, Andy Daly. If you ever listen to any of his
oh,
stuff, he does
okay.
really good voices.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah,
he's really funny.
yeah,
All right. My final question for you.
yeah,
Um, and then we'll go into some, once again, shouting out everything we mentioned before. But my final question for you before we go into plugs and all that good stuff. This is questions from Courtney. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, questions
yeah,
from Courtney.
Courtney.
Uh, and this actually kind of goes well into your response of like, you wish you understood how to find your calm or feel content.
Yes.
What is something that will instantly make your day?
Um, this is gonna sound so no, I'm not gonna qualify it. Okay.
I qualify stuff all the time. I understand the
It
tendency.
yeah. Um, my cat, when she flops, and when I, like
I
she is my cat is the cutest fucking thing, and let me just say quickly, viewers, if you're like, "Oh my god, cat lady." I did not like cats for most of my life until I met my
This is
husband.
Anubis, right?
Yeah, Nupus was her, like yeah, and her name is Penny. Her name is Penny. But yeah, she's got so many nicknames now. She's I'm obs I would die for her. Yeah, I love her, and when she flops, I just giggle inwardly and outwardly, and yeah, that's all it takes. That's all it takes.
That's all you need, man.
All
I
you
love
need.
that.
Yeah,
It's the simple things.
yeah.
For me, this is going to be really fucking cheesy. You were worried about qualifiers on yours. I uh, I literally was driving home today with the biggest smile. I'm like, I get to see my daughter today. I get to see my daughter
Oh,
when I get home.
yes.
I'm like, when did I become the stereotypical dad? I'm going to be that annoying dude who shows up at parties, be like,
Please do.
here's the recent pictures of her.
Yeah,
I
and
I,
and I
I
gotta
already
go.
am
I
that.
gotta go 'cause, I wanna go home and hang out with her, so peace out, guys. Yeah, yeah. No, that's a great problem.
And actually, I do have one more question from Courtney, just because one thing I love about my wife is that she asks questions. Like that one was a pretty good one, but sometimes she
Yeah,
asks questions. I'm like, I don't know why anyone would ask this in an interview, but that's why I kind of want to.
yeah.
What's your favorite smell?
Oh, um, I I think my favorite smell where you're just like yeah, where you actually are like 'cause, in Chicago, there was a Ghirardelli factory, and
Oh,
you'd walk down the street and it was like but it was like that rich, dark chocolate smell that's just like
hmm,
it goes into your bone. Not milk, not sweet milk chocolate. I don't actually like milk chocolate, but that like rich, dark chocolate, like where
yeah.
it's like in the air. Um That's probably my favorite smell. That will make me go, "Where? Where?" You know? And it's a little bit like, gives you a little bit of a high, whether you can
I
drink it or
get you.
not or eat it or not. Yeah, I love, like, a really, like, dark, dark chocolate, like hot chocolate, like that smell. Oh, yeah. Yes.
I'm
Yeah, that's a good
For
question.
myself, it would probably be coffee. I know I don't e I'm not even a coffee fan. Like, I like
Oh, yeah.
lattes and stuff, but if you
Mhm.
ask me to just drink up, like, straight coffee, even with just, like, milk and sugar or cream and sugar,
Yeah,
not my favorite, but the
yeah.
smell of coffee, I always love it.
It's incredible.
Fun fact, what I usually do, because I'm not like I said, I'm kind of a wimp and I don't like just straight up coffee, I put hot chocolate mix into my coffee to kinda make like a mocha,
Yeah, I used to do that. Yeah,
like a hazelnut coffee with, like, hot chocolate mix, so you get a mocha out of that. That's really good,
you're winning.
and
Yeah,
depending on
that's
what kind of hot chocolate mix you use,
yeah.
it might be a little bit too much sugar, but it tastes good.
I get the Dutch chocolate, the Droste Droste. It's like it is like real chocolate, and you add some sugar
Ooh,
to it,
okay.
and I can't ever go back. Everything tastes like fake to me after that. It's like, yeah, Droste, however you say it. It
I'll have
is
to check that out because I've been, not spoiled, I've been, ruined by Swiss Miss, I guess, and by ruined, I mean,
yes.
I'm just used to the cheap stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I know, and yeah, and sometimes it'll take care of things in a pinch, but, yeah, now I'm like, everything just tastes like cardboard now by comparison. It's just
I'm
yeah,
gonna have to
and you
try
can
out
control how much
Drosto.
sugar you put in because I like it dark without too much. I like a little sweet, but not too that's how
Oh, so you're actually healthier than I am. I just pour like,
I know,
you know
I'm
how
a
some
stone.
people will try to cut drinking soda with like fizzy water or like carbonated
Mhm.
water because it's the fizz. Nope.
Nope.
It's the sugar.
You need the
It's
sugar,
not the
yeah.
fizz that does it for me. It's the sweetness. It's
Yep.
awful.
Yep, that makes sense. Yep,
It's
you're not
so
alone.
bad.
Yeah.
But all right, let's wrap up this episode. Liz, thank you once again for joining me. This has been a lot of fun.
Good.
I've enjoyed talking to you. I said it already. I'm so sorry for all the distractions. My daughter was having a couple meltdowns mid
It
recording. It was a great
happens.
time.
All good.
Everyone had a good time. I promise you. but
She's
um,
hopefully fast asleep and happy now. Yeah, no,
oh
I
God, I
know,
hope so.
you know?
But no, thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
Likewise.
And where first off, so the new games that you recently just well one game recently came out and I believe Stargate's coming out soon. Oxenfree 2.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah.
is there any final words you'd like to say to kind of pitch this to my listeners? Like what should they look for with Oxenfree 2 and what personally made you excited about voicing Riley to kind of pitch this to my audience?
It's a beautiful game, like, visually, auditorially, I'm just is that a word? I should know if that's a word, because 'cause I'm a voice actor. It's rich, storytelling, it's great characters, it's funny, it's poignant, it kind of applies to everybody, so if you just like a good, simple story that isn't a strategic, first-person shooter, action bang bang, this is a great game, and, it's only rated T for teens, so it's a little spooky, but it's not like, it's not a kid's game, but it's not it just applies to
Yeah.
so many people, and I think it really resonates with a lot of people, and I'm super proud of it, and, I think you'll love it. That's it.
I'm I'm very much looking forward to playing it because I own Oxenfree 1. I
Oh,
just have not gotten it's in my backlog, but
yeah.
I promise after this episode I'll make it a point to play not only that but also the new one which is starring you, which I'm so excited
Aw,
to try out.
yes, please.
Uh
Yeah.
yeah, and then obviously you're in Stargate Timekeepers.
Mhm.
So that I don't think has been released yet, but it's coming out soon.
It is imminent, yeah, I'm also in the dark on that, but I kept hearing, like, July, like, this month it was coming out, or at least the beta version was, but they yeah, of course, we voice actors are often, like, the last people to hear what's going on, so, but it's imminent, so just keep your eyes and ears peeled, and, it'll be out soon, I promise. I'll make a call.
Get your shit together. I'm just
Yeah, yeah,
kidding.
yeah, yeah,
um
yeah, and that's more, like, tactical, high energy, you know, yeah, it's Star if you love Stargate, it's and, space and sci-fi and all that good stuff, it's a fun game, for sure.
where can the good people find you online? Is there any social media that you want to shout out for them to follow you over there, or anything else you want to promote?
Sure. Yeah, I'm not like I'm not all over the socials, but I am mostly on Instagram, Liz Saydah. Um, I'm on Twitter, even though I don't really post. What is it? X, Twitter? Ugh,
I don't,
fuck it. I don't know. You know what?
whatever
Don't
that
even
guy
go.
wants to
Don't go
call it
there.
now.
Don't go there. Okay. Yeah, but I'm not on TikTok. And then my YouTube channel is just at
Go
Elizabeth
check out
Saydah.
her
Yeah,
YouTube channel.
yeah,
Elizabeth Saydah is the at
yeah,
for that.
yeah, yeah.
I know I talked about it a ton in an episode that's supposed to be promoting your your new games, but I really enjoyed conspiracy cover
Oh,
ups.
thank you. Like, that, like, really warms my heart. Thank you for watching, and, it's a fun little show. It's satirical
I
and funny, so don't take it seriously, people, because we had a lot of people be like, "Is this real?" And it's like, "Are you kidding me?"
the first episode, okay, the first episode is called or no, you it's a human alien hybrid program, and you have even the joke of 50 shades of gray aliens or something as like the
Yeah.
title of it. Like, I don't know how people could take it seriously.
You know what, Josh? It's amazing what people
The internet's a
believe.
wondrous and
It's so
disastrous place all at the
wondrous.
same time.
Yeah, it really is. Anyway, yeah, but I really
Um,
means a lot. You check that out. Thank you.
no problem. Looking forward to watching more. But as usual, for myself listeners, you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and oh no, fuck you, fuck him. It's Twitter still. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Still Loading Pod on all of them. Also, YouTube at Still Loading Podcast. Though it's just thumbnails and audio of the episodes. You can also find me on Twitch at Still Loading Pod. Blue Sky at Still Loading Pod. There's so many freaking socials now.
Oh my
Everywhere
god.
at Still Loading Pod, but at Still Loading Podcast on YouTube. There we go. Um, if you want to support the show, you can do it in a number of ways. You can give it a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or whichever podcasting app you use, because that makes me feel warm and fuzzy. And if it's to be true, it pleases the algorithm gods with your review prayers. I don't know what religious allegory analogy I'm going with anymore. But either way, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. So please do so. If you want to support the show monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you'll get all the episodes a few days earlier at better audio quality, as well as patron voting rights, where you can help me pick future games and topics to cover on the show. For $4 a month, you'll get everything at the $1 tier, plus access to 2 bonus episodes every month, which covers a variety of things, retro magazine reviews, music compilations, all that good stuff. And for $5 a month, you'll get everything at the previous 2 tiers, plus access to Still Bonding, my James Bond podcast where me and a bunch of friends bond over 007. As I've said a bunch of times, each episode is 2.5 to 3 hours long, so it's a lot of content for y'all. $5 a month, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. But of course, my final shout out is the Bit by Bit Foundation. The Bit by Bit Foundation is a nonprofit organization who puts video games and video game consoles in the hands of kids receiving inpatient care at hospitals. They donate the systems to the hospital, so while the kids are receiving their care, they can do something to pass their time. So check out bitbybitfoundation.org to consider donating. That is all the time I have for you today. Liz, thank you once again for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you again. This was really fun and just a great way to end my day, so I appreciate it.
I'm glad that you had a good time, and I hope if you would ever want to, I would love to have you back on to bullshit about more improv in video games. So
Anytime. Yeah, I could talk about it, ad nauseum, so anytime, reach out. Happy to.
awesome. Well, thank you
Yes.
all for listening, and I will see you all next time.